My mother trusted me with every room in our old farmhouse except one. The attic stays closed, she always said, even after I was old enough to drive. Promise me. She never sounded angry. She sounded afraid. After she passed away at 78, I believed grief would be the hardest part. Instead, it was the silence inside that house. While sorting her things, I found the attic key taped beneath the kitchen clock. Beside it rested a folded note in her familiar handwriting. Only go up when you're ready to know why I lied. My stomach tightened. Lied about what? I climbed the narrow stairs anyway. Dust covered every beam. But someone had cleaned a path through the middle recently. That made no sense. Mom had barely managed stairs during her final years. A single wooden trunk waited beneath the small round window. Inside were neatly folded baby blankets, faded birthday cards, an old camera, and a bundle of letters tied with blue ribbon. None were addressed to me. They were all written to someone named Grace. I assumed Grace had been my mother's forgotten sister. The letters spoke of birthdays, piano recitals, scraped knees, and missing someone every single day. Yet every envelope had been sealed. None had ever been mailed. Why would someone write years of letters to a sister without sending them? Then I noticed something stranger. Every letter ended with the same sentence. One day your brother will understand. I never had a sister, and I certainly wasn't anyone's brother. Tucked beneath the ribbon lay one final envelope. Unlike the others, it had my name on it. My hand shook as I broke the seal. The letter wasn't long. It began with 4 words. You deserve the truth. Mom wrote that Grace wasn't her sister. She was the little girl who had lived next door. When Grace was 6, a gas explosion destroyed her family's home. Only she survived. Mom and Dad became her legal guardians while distant relatives fought over custody. I assumed the mystery was over. Grace had simply lived with us before I was born. Then I reached the final paragraph. That isn't the lie. A photograph slipped from the envelope. It showed my parents 20 years younger. Between them stood a smiling girl with freckles. Around her neck hung the tiny silver bird pendant I had always believed belonged to my mother. On the back, someone had written, "Our children," plural. I searched the attic again. Behind the trunk sat an old-school backpack. Inside were report cards. Grace's last name matched mine. My pulse raced. Had my parents secretly adopted her? If so, why erase her from every photograph downstairs? Why pretend she never existed? The camera from the trunk still contained undeveloped film. The local photography shop managed to recover several images. Most showed ordinary family moments. Camping, birthday cakes, snowball fights. Then came one impossible picture. I was a toddler sitting on Grace's lap. I remembered none of it. Someone had deliberately cut her out of every version in our family albums. Why erase only her? The technician handed me one final negative. There should have been another person here, he quietly said. I suddenly realized the letters weren't preserving memories. They were replacing something far more painful. I drove to the nursing home where my mother's oldest friend, Eleanor, still volunteered. She stared at the recovered photograph for a long time before speaking. I hoped you'd never need this. She handed me a worn hospital bracelet. Grace's name. My last name. The admission date matched the summer I turned 3. Eleanor explained that Grace hadn't been adopted. She had become my legal sister after the explosion. She adored me, protected me constantly. Then one afternoon, I wandered toward the abandoned grain silo behind our property. Grace ran after me. She reached me. I survived. She didn't. The collapse killed her instantly. I couldn't remember. Trauma had erased nearly everything. My parents blamed themselves. My mother blamed the attic. She had ignored Grace's request to clear dangerous junk from the loft that morning. Had she listened, Grace would never have chased me outside alone. For decades, my mother believed remembering Grace would only burden me with guilt over a tragedy that wasn't my fault. So she hid every photograph. She wrote letters instead. Letters to the daughter she missed. Letters she couldn't bear to send anywhere. Then Eleanor revealed one final truth. Your mother stopped writing only 6 months ago. Why? Because she finally believed you were strong enough to read them. I looked again at the silver bird pendant in the photograph. Mine had never belonged to Mom. It had always been Grace's. Back at the farmhouse, I climbed into the attic one last time. The final bundle contained another letter. Not to Grace. To me. Mom admitted that hiding the truth hadn't protected either of us. It had only postponed our healing. She asked for one promise. Don't let Grace become a secret twice. The next month, I donated the undeveloped photographs, letters, hospital records, and Grace's school artwork to our county. Historical museums exhibit about families rebuilt after tragedy. Her story finally had a place outside one dusty attic. At the dedication, Eleanor squeezed my hand. Your mother would be proud. For the first time, I believed that might be true. I stopped wearing the silver bird pendant every day. Not because I wanted to forget Grace, because it no longer needed to remind me she existed. Her memory had finally found daylight. I still visit the attic every spring, not to search for answers, to remember how fear can disguise itself as love, and how love sometimes makes impossible mistakes. My mother wasn't hiding a shameful secret. She was carrying unbearable regret. Understanding that didn't erase the loss. It transformed it. Now, whenever my grandchildren ask about the girl smiling in the restored family photograph above my fireplace, I tell them her name without hesitation. That's your great-aunt Grace. And because of her, I'm here to tell you this story. Some legacies are written in photographs. Others survive because someone finally opens the letter they were always meant to read.